Farm boy adopts Jaguar cub thinking it's a dog, but when it grows up, Billy Thompson ran to the broken fence where he found a small, injured creature whimpering softly. The 9-year-old boy didn't think twice before scooping up the spotted cub in his arms, convinced he'd found a hurt stray dog. 3 weeks had passed since Billy brought the animal home, hiding it in the back shed of the farm. His grandfather Ernest, a 70-year-old man who'd raised his grandson alone since the boy's parents left for the city, still didn't know about the little creature. Billy fed the cub warm milk and bits of meat he stole from the kitchen, watching as it grew rapidly. "Spots, you're going to be the prettiest dog in all of Golden Ridge," Billy whispered, stroking the animal's spotted fur, which already showed sharp claws and intense golden eyes. Thompson Farm was nestled in rural Kentucky, where life moved at the slow rhythm of the seasons. Billy had arrived there 2 years earlier after his parents, Linda and Robert, decided to try their luck in Louisville. They'd promised to return in a few months, but letters became rare and visits never happened. Ernest watched his grandson with growing concern. The boy had become even more withdrawn in recent weeks, disappearing for hours and always making excuses when questioned. The old farmer recognized that behavior. It was the same as when Billy first arrived, masking his abandonment pain with stubbornness. "Where have you been sneaking off to, boy?" Ernest asked one Tuesday morning, watching his grandson arrive late for breakfast. "Just checking on the calves, Grandpa. Didn't you ask me to help more around the farm?" The lie came too easily, and Ernest noticed. But he decided to give the boy time, hoping the truth would come out naturally. What he didn't expect was that the truth would change their lives forever. In the shed, Spots had doubled in size. His spots grew more defined each day, and his instincts were awakening. Billy noticed how the animal reacted differently to the farm sounds. His ears twitched nervously when the chickens clucked, and his eyes gleamed strangely at the sight of grazing calves. Mrs. Miller, the closest neighbor who lived 2 miles away, showed up at the farm one Thursday morning with a worried face. She brought news that alarmed Ernest. "Ernest, you best be careful. Last night something killed 3 of my hens. There was hardly anything left, just feathers scattered around the yard." "Must have been a fox or a wildcat," Ernest replied, though a sinking feeling told him it might be worse. "No, Ernest. The marks were different, big claws, real big. And there's more. I found strange tracks near the coop, tracks I've never seen around these parts." Billy, who'd been eavesdropping from behind the kitchen door, felt his heart race. Spots had gone missing the night before and only returned at dawn with blood on his muzzle that the boy quickly wiped away before anyone saw. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now back to the story. That afternoon, Billy decided to have a serious talk with Spots. The animal, now the size of a large dog, lay under the shade of an old tree behind the shed. His paws were disproportionately big, and his fangs stood out for their size. "Spots, you can't go out at night, understand? Grandpa might find you and then we'll be in trouble," the boy said, stroking the animal's head. The feline stared at him with those piercing golden eyes and let out a low sound that wasn't quite a bark or a meow. It was something different, deeper, that made Billy Thompson's chest vibrate. Dr. James Wilson, the veterinarian who served the area, arrived at the farm the next day at Ernest's request. The 50-year-old man had come to check on a cow having trouble giving birth, but ended up staying for a long conversation on the porch. "Have you noticed anything strange around here, Ernest?" the vet asked, as he sipped his strong coffee. "Why do you ask?" "I've been getting odd reports. Pets going missing, strange footprints, unusual sounds at night. Mrs. Miller isn't the only one who's lost chickens." Ernest grew thoughtful. Over the past few days, he himself had noticed the horses getting restless in the early hours, neighing nervously for no apparent reason, and there was that strange smell he sometimes caught near the barns, a wild scent he couldn't place. "What do you think it could be?" the farmer asked. "From what I've heard described, it might be a big cat, a cougar, an ocelot, animals that don't usually come around here, but with the deforestation up north, they might be moving down in search of new territory." Billy, who had been eavesdropping again, felt his legs go weak. Spots wasn't a dog. The pieces were falling into place in the boy's mind. The claws that grew too fast, the sharp teeth, the way he hunted flies with uncanny precision, the odd sounds he made at night. That evening, the boy went to the barn with a heavy heart. Spots was even bigger now, and his spots had the unmistakable pattern Billy finally recognized from the pictures in his school books. It was a cougar. His pet was a cougar. "What am I going to do with you, Spots?" he whispered, and for the first time since finding the animal, Billy felt afraid. The feline stepped closer and rubbed his head against the boy's leg, purring softly. Despite his growth, he still showed the same affection, still treated Billy like family. But Billy couldn't ignore what he'd discovered. The next morning, Ernest woke to a desperate scream from the yard. Billy stood frozen beside the open chicken coop, 3 hens scattered on the ground and feathers everywhere. The boy was sobbing, uncontrollably, clutching a bloodied feather in his hands. "What happened here, boy?" Ernest asked, alarmed. I don't know, Grandpa. I found it like this when I came to feed them." But the lie was obvious. Billy knew exactly what had happened. Spots had hunted during the night, and now the problem was on their farm too. The animal he loved like a brother was becoming a danger. Ernest studied his grandson carefully. There was something the boy wasn't telling him, he was sure of it. The way Billy avoided eye contact, how his hands trembled, how he seemed to know more than he should about the situation. "Billy, sit down," the old man said, pointing to a log they used as a bench. "I need you to tell me the truth. The whole truth." Reluctantly, the boy sat, still clutching the bloody feather. He knew the time had come to confess everything, but he didn't know how to start. How could he explain that he'd been hiding a cougar for weeks? How could he say his best friend was a dangerous predator? "Grandpa, if I tell you something really serious, do you promise you won't get mad?" Ernest's stomach tightened. "I promise, boy, but I need to know what's going on." Billy took a deep breath and began to tell the whole story. About finding Spots injured by the fence, about hiding him in the barn, about feeding him and caring for him. As he spoke, he watched his grandfather's face shift from concern to shock, and then to something close to dread. "Where is this animal now?" asked Ernest when his grandson finished speaking. "In the back shed. He's not bad, Grandpa. He likes me, plays with me, sleeps in my lap." "Billy, you don't understand the situation. Jaguars are wild animals. No matter how tame he seems now, he'll grow up and his instincts will take over. It's too dangerous." The boy started crying again. "But he's my friend. He trusts me. I can't just abandon him." Ernest stood up slowly, trying to process the information. His 9-year-old grandson had been raising a Jaguar for weeks without him knowing. The animal had already killed chickens and was likely growing stronger and more dangerous by the day. "Let's go see this Spots," said the grandfather, trying to keep his voice calm. They walked to the back shed, Billy leading the way, preparing his grandpa for what he was about to see. When Ernest spotted the animal, his heart nearly stopped. It was indeed a young jaguar, already impressively large with well-developed muscles. Spots was lying on a pile of hay Billy had arranged as a bed. Seeing the boy, the big cat stood up and walked toward him, rubbing its head against his legs and letting out a low, deep purr. "Good Lord," Ernest whispered. "Billy, do you realize what you've done?" "He's gentle, Grandpa. See how much he likes me." The boy stroked Spots' head, and the jaguar closed its eyes in contentment. Ernest watched the interaction between his grandson and the jaguar with a mix of fascination and terror. There was no denying the strong bond between them, but it was also clear the situation had spiraled out of control. Just then, they heard the sound of a car approaching. Dr. Wilson was returning to check on the cow as promised. Ernest felt a surge of panic. "Billy, hide the animal now," he whispered urgently. "Come on, Spots, come here," the boy called, guiding the jaguar to the back of the shed and covering it with an old tarp. Dr. Wilson arrived smiling, but his expression changed when he saw the destroyed chicken coop. "Did it happen here too, Ernest?" "Looks like it. We found it like this morning." The vet knelt to examine the paw prints in the dirt. His face turned serious as he studied the marks. "Ernest, these tracks, they're from a jaguar. There's one roaming the area and it's getting bold." Billy felt his blood run cold. From the back of the shed he could hear Spots shifting restlessly under the tarp. "Are you sure?" Ernest asked, trying to sound natural. "Absolutely. Look at the size of the claws, the shape of the paw. It's a young jaguar, judging by the size, but already big enough to be dangerous. You need to be very careful." Dr. Wilson stayed another hour examining the cow and discussing safety measures. The whole time Billy was on edge, constantly glancing toward the shed. Spots was restless, and he feared the animal might make a noise. When the vet finally left, Ernest turned to his grandson with a stern expression. "Billy, you heard what the doctor said. We can't keep this animal here. It's dangerous for us and the whole neighborhood. But where will he go if you tell anyone? They'll hurt him." Ernest sighed deeply. He knew his grandson was right. If the authorities found out about a jaguar in the area, they'd likely take drastic measures. "Let's think of a solution together, okay? But until then, you can't let him out of the shed, not even at night." That afternoon, they sat on the porch to discuss their options. Billy suggested taking Spots deep into the woods where he could live free. Ernest explained that a jaguar raised by humans wouldn't know how to hunt and would likely starve. "What if we teach him to hunt?" the boy asked. "Billy, you don't understand. Jaguars aren't pets. They have instincts that can be dangerous, even to those they care about." As they were talking, Mrs. Miller appeared again, this time accompanied by her husband, Mr. Miller, and 2 more neighbors from the area. Everyone seemed worried and agitated. "Ernest, the situation is getting serious," said Mrs. Miller. "Last night, the jaguar attacked neighbor Joe's livestock. It took 2 hens and a rooster, and left tracks right in front of his house," added Mr. Miller. "That beast is getting too bold." Billy Thompson felt his legs go weak. Spots had gone out again during the night, even after he had asked the animal to stay in the barn. The situation was spiraling out of control. "We're organizing a search," continued one of the neighbors. "We'll look for the animal during the day when it should be resting. We can't let this go on." Ernest glanced discreetly at his grandson, who was pale as a sheet. "A search is a good idea. I'm counting on you." After the neighbors left, grandfather and grandson stood in silence on the porch. The gravity of the situation hung between them like a dark cloud. "Grandpa, they'll hurt Spots if they find him," said Billy, his voice trembling. "It's possible, son. That's why we need to find a solution fast." That night, Billy slept in the barn beside Spots. The animal seemed to sense the boy's tension and grew more restless than usual, pacing back and forth and constantly eyeing the door. "Stay still, Spots, please, stay still," Billy whispered, trying to calm the feline. But around midnight, Spots stood up determinedly and walked to the barn door. His hunting instincts had awakened, and nothing Billy did could stop him. "No, Spots, come back," the boy called. But the jaguar had already slipped out through the half-open door. Billy ran after him but couldn't catch up in the darkness. Spots had vanished into the night, driven by instincts even he didn't fully understand. By morning, the news was devastating. The jaguar had attacked livestock on 3 different properties overnight. Besides the chickens, this time it had wounded a dog that tried to defend its home and frightened an entire family who heard growls near their bedroom window. "The situation has gone too far," said Dr. James Wilson, who arrived early with even worse news. "I called my colleague from Louisville, a specialist in wild felines. He's coming today to help with the capture." Billy felt his world crumbling. Spots had returned just before dawn with blood on his muzzle and a different, wilder demeanor. The animal he loved was truly becoming a threat. Ernest made a difficult decision. "Billy, we'll have to tell the doctor the truth. It's the only chance to save your Spots. They'll take him away, Grandpa." "Maybe, but at least he'll stay alive if the neighbors find him first." The boy understood there was no other choice. When Dr. Wilson returned with his colleague, Dr. Emily Johnson, a biologist specializing in felines, Ernest asked to speak with them privately. The specialist's reaction was initial shock, followed by scientific interest. Dr. Emily had never seen a case of a young jaguar raised so successfully by humans. "Do you realize you've done something extraordinary?" she asked. "Jaguars don't usually adapt to human companionship like this." "But it's dangerous, isn't it?" asked Ernest. "Very. No matter how docile the animal seems with you, its predatory instincts are developing, and a full-grown jaguar can be lethal even to those it considers family." Dr. Emily examined Spots carefully, impressed by the animal's health and development. The jaguar, though wary of the strangers, allowed the exam because Billy was by his side. "This is a young male, probably about 4 months old now. He's in a critical period of behavioral development," explained the biologist. "If he's not handled properly now, he could become a real danger." "What will you do with him?" asked Billy Thompson, tears in his eyes. "There's a wildlife sanctuary about 200 miles from here that specializes in rehabilitating big cats. They have the facilities to care for a jaguar like this and hopefully eventually reintroduce him into the wild." The thought of being separated from Spots was unbearable for Billy, but he understood it was the only way to ensure the safety of both the animal and the people. "Can I visit him?" the boy asked. Dr. Emily Johnson smiled sadly. "Not at first. Sweetheart, he needs to learn to live without human dependence, but maybe in the future once he's adjusted." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. The preparations for Spot's transfer took 2 days. Dr. Emily had to arrange a special transport crate and coordinate with the sanctuary team. During that time, Billy spent every possible minute with his feline friend. Ernest watched his grandson with a heavy heart. He could see how much the boy was suffering from the impending separation, but he also knew there was no alternative. The situation had become too dangerous for everyone involved. "Grandpa, what if Spots can't adjust at the sanctuary? What if he's sad without me?" Billy asked repeatedly. "Son, you've taken good care of him so far. Now it's time to let the experts continue that care. It's an act of love, you understand?" The night before the transfer, Billy slept in the barn again. Spots seemed to sense something was changing. The animal was more affectionate than usual, nuzzling the boy and purring softly for hours. "Spots, you're going to a place where there are other animals like you. It'll be better, you'll see," Billy whispered, trying to convince himself as much as the jaguar. The morning of the transfer was grey and rainy. Dr. Emily and her team arrived early with the transport crate, secured in the bed of an adapted pickup truck. Getting Spots into the crate was harder than expected. The jaguar, who had grown significantly in recent weeks, showed his strength for the first time in a frightening way. When he saw the crate, his survival instincts kicked in, and he refused to cooperate. "Billy, can you help?" Dr. Emily asked. "He trusts you." The boy approached the crate with a piece of fresh meat. "Come on, Spots, come get it." The jaguar hesitated, looking between the food and the boy. His golden eyes showed confusion and distrust. "It's gonna be okay, buddy. I promise," Billy said, and something in his voice calmed Spots. Slowly, the jaguar entered the crate to take the meat. When Dr. Emily closed the door, Spots realized what had happened and began roaring loudly, a sound none of them had heard before. Billy broke down sobbing. Seeing his friend trapped and distressed was more painful than he'd imagined. "He's scared. He doesn't understand what's happening," the boy cried. "Billy, you need to be strong now," Ernest said, hugging his grandson. "It's for his own good." The trip to the sanctuary would take 4 hours. Dr. Emily allowed Billy to come along to help keep Spots calm during transport. The boy stayed beside the crate the entire time, speaking softly to the animal. The Green Valley Wildlife Sanctuary was impressive. Located in a preserved forest area, it had modern facilities to care for injured or orphaned wild animals. Dr. William Parker, the sanctuary director, personally greeted the group. "This is a very special case," he said after hearing the story. "We rarely receive animals with such strong human bonds." The facilities prepared for Spots included a large enclosure with natural vegetation, a sheltered area, and even a small stream. It was a far better environment than the farm shed, but Billy Thompson couldn't find joy in it. "When will he be able to roam free in the woods?" the boy asked. "That depends on how he adapts. It could take months, maybe years. Some human-raised animals never fully adjust to life in the wild." The process of moving Spots from the transport crate to the enclosure was handled with care. Dr. Parker and his team used special techniques to minimize the animal's stress. When they finally opened the crate door, Spots stepped out slowly, sniffing his new surroundings. The big cat explored the enclosure for a few minutes, then walked straight to the bars where Billy stood. He rubbed his head against the metal and let out that familiar low purr the boy knew so well. "He wants me to go in there with him," Billy said, his voice breaking. "We can't allow that," Dr. Parker explained. "From now on, he needs to start detaching from human dependence." The goodbye was heartbreaking. Billy placed his hand on the bars, and Spots pressed his paw against the other side, as if they were touching through the metal. The cat's golden eyes seemed to question why they were being separated. "I'll miss you every day," Billy whispered. "But you'll be happy here, I know it." During the ride back, Billy stayed completely silent. Ernest tried to talk a few times, but the boy was lost in thoughts about his friend. "Grandpa, do you think he'll forget me?" he finally asked. "Animals. Don't forget those who treated them well, son. Spots will always remember you." The following weeks were hard. Billy lost all interest in farm chores. He spent hours sitting in the shed where Spots used to stay, staring blankly. Ernest worried about his grandson's emotional state. The boy barely ate, slept poorly, and avoided conversation. It was as if he'd lost a part of himself. "Billy, do you want to talk about how you're feeling?" his grandfather asked one afternoon, finding him crying in the shed. "Grandpa, I feel like I abandoned him. Spots probably thinks I don't love him anymore." "Son, you did the right thing. It was hard, but it's best for everyone." But Billy wasn't convinced. Guilt and longing consumed him day after day. 2 weeks after the transfer, Dr. Emily Johnson called with an update about Spots. The animal was eating well and exploring his enclosure, but showed signs of separation anxiety. "He spends hours by the bars staring at the pathway you left," the biologist reported. "It's normal behavior, but concerning." The news made Billy even sadder. Knowing Spots was also suffering made the pain worse. That night, the boy made a decision. He waited for Ernest to fall asleep and slipped out quietly. His plan was to walk to the sanctuary, even if it took all night. Ernest woke before dawn and realized his grandson was gone. He found a hastily written note on the kitchen table. "Grandpa, I went to get Spots. I can't leave him alone." The old farmer panicked. Billy had set out on foot down a dangerous road in the dead of night, attempting an impossible 200-mile journey. Ernest grabbed his truck and went searching. He found Billy about 6 miles down the road, walking determinedly through the darkness. "Billy, what in the world are you doing?" he shouted, pulling over beside the boy. "I need to see if he's okay, Grandpa. I need to explain to him that I didn't abandon him." Ernest stepped out of the pickup truck and hugged his grandson, who was crying uncontrollably. "Son, you can't do this. It's too dangerous and it won't solve anything." "But what if he dies of sadness? What if he thinks I don't love him anymore?" The pain in Billy Thompson's voice was so intense that Ernest felt his own heart break. The old farmer realized the situation had become more serious than he'd thought. "All right, Billy. Tomorrow we'll call the sanctuary and ask if we can visit." Dr. William Parker initially hesitated to allow the visit, explaining that it might disrupt Spot's adjustment process, but when he heard about Billy's emotional state and the attempted escape, he agreed to a controlled visit. "This could be a chance for closure for both of them," he explained. "Sometimes a proper goodbye is better than an abrupt separation." The trip back to the sanctuary was tense. Billy was eager to see Spots, but also afraid of what he might find. What if the animal was sick? What if he didn't recognize him anymore? When they arrived, Dr. Parker took them straight to Spots' enclosure. The big cat was lying in the shade of a tree, looking bigger and stronger than when he'd first arrived. As soon as he heard Billy's voice, Spots lifted his head quickly. His ears perked up and he ran to the fence, making excited sounds that mixed purrs and what seemed like calls. "Spots!" Billy shouted, running to the fence. The reunion was emotional. Spots rubbed against the bars, trying to get closer to the boy. His eyes shone with joy and he wouldn't stop vocalizing. "He's bigger," Billy observed with a mix of awe and sadness. "He's developing well," Dr. Parker confirmed, "physically and behaviorally, but he still shows excessive attachment to humans." During the 2-hour visit, Billy talked to Spots through the fence. The animal listened attentively, as he always had, and responded with his signature sounds. "Spots, you're getting strong. You'll be able to live in the wild, just like the others of your kind," the boy said. But when it was time to leave, the goodbye was even harder than the first. Spot seemed to understand Billy was leaving again and refused to move away from the fence. "Dr. Parker, he's never going to adapt, is he?" Billy asked, watching the animal's distress. "It's too soon to say. Some cases take a long time, but most animals eventually manage." On the ride home, Billy was calmer but also more realistic about the situation. He understood Spots was being well cared for, but also that the separation was truly necessary. In the weeks that followed, the boy gradually returned to his usual farm activities. He still thought about Spots every day, but the guilt had lessened. Ernest watched his grandson with relief. Seeing Billy emotionally recovering was a weight off his shoulders. 2 months after the transfer, Dr. Emily Johnson called with important news. Spots had started showing natural hunting behaviors and was interacting better with the other big cats at the sanctuary. "He's making progress," she reported. "He's not ready to live free yet, but the signs are encouraging." Billy was happy with the news, though part of him still wished Spots could come home. Life on the farm slowly returned to normal. The neighbors stopped reporting nighttime disturbances, and the area regained its peace. The story of Billy and Spots became a local legend, told and retold with variations. Mrs. Miller often said, "Only a child could ever tame a wildcat like that. If he were an adult, he would have been eaten on the first day." But Ernest knew it hadn't been domestication. It had been mutual love between a lonely boy and an orphaned animal, a connection that defied the laws of nature for a few precious weeks. 6 months later, news arrived that would change everything again. Dr. William Parker called urgently on a Thursday afternoon. "Ernest, I need to talk to you. It's about Spots." The serious tone in the sanctuary director's voice made both Ernest and Billy Thompson nervous. "Did something happen to him?" the boy asked, taking the phone from his grandfather's hands. "He's physically fine, Billy, but there's a problem. Spots isn't fully adapting to life without human contact. He rejects other big cats and shows no interest in reproducing in the future." The news left Billy confused. Is that bad? For eventual reintroduction into the wild, yes. Jaguars are territorial and solitary, but they need to maintain some social instincts of their species. Dr. Parker explained that Spots had become a special case, even by the sanctuary's standards. The animal was healthy and strong, but behaviorally different from other jaguars. "We're considering a different alternative for him," the director continued. "There's a zoo in New York City specializing in environmental education that's interested in animals with backgrounds like Spots." The idea of Spots going to a zoo didn't sit well with Billy at first. Will he be locked up forever? Not exactly locked up. He'd be an ambassador for his species, helping educate people about the importance of jaguar conservation. And he'd have an excellent quality of life. Dr. Parker explained that the zoo had modern facilities, an environmental enrichment program, and even allowed special visits for animals with a history of human interaction. "Billy could visit Spots regularly if you'd like," he concluded. The possibility of having Spots closer and being able to visit him excited Billy, but he still had doubts. What if he doesn't like it there? "We'll do a gradual adaptation period. If it doesn't work, he'll return to the sanctuary." After much discussion with Ernest, Billy agreed to the transfer. The idea of seeing Spots again and knowing he'd help others learn about jaguars gave the situation new meaning. The transfer to the zoo happened 3 weeks later. This time Billy was part of the entire process, helping calm Spots during the trip. The Bronx Zoo had impressive facilities. The enclosure prepared for Spots was enormous, with natural vegetation, artificial waterfalls, and various environments to explore. Dr. Sarah Bennett, the zoo's feline veterinarian, was fascinated by Spot's story. "This animal will be an incredible educational tool," she said. "People need to understand that jaguars aren't pets, but special cases like this show their intelligence and emotional capacity." Spot's adaptation to the zoo was surprisingly quick. He explored the entire enclosure in the first few days and soon settled into the routine. What most impressed the staff was how Spots reacted to public visits. The jaguar showed curiosity toward people, especially children, approaching the viewing areas when there was activity. Billy made his first official visit 2 weeks after the transfer. Spots recognized him immediately, running to the bars and vocalizing loudly in excitement. "Hi, buddy. You've gotten so big," Billy said, amazed by Spot's growth. The Jaguar had become an impressive young adult, with well-developed muscles and a glossy coat. His golden eyes held the same expressiveness as always. During the visit, Dr. Olivia explained how Spots was being integrated into the zoo's educational program. He'll be part of special conservation presentations. People will learn his story and better understand the importance of preserving jaguars in the wild. The idea made Billy Thompson proud. His friend wouldn't just be another captive animal, but an important ambassador for his species. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, back to the story. The following months brought a new and unexpectedly comforting routine. Billy visited Spots every 2 weeks, always accompanied by Ernest. The zoo facilitated these visits, understanding how meaningful the bond was for both of them. During one visit, Billy met Emma, an 8-year-old girl in a wheelchair, who was participating in the zoo's special program for children with disabilities. "Is that the Jaguar raised by a boy?" Emma asked, pointing at Spots. "Yes," Billy replied. "I took care of him when he was a cub." Emma was fascinated by the story and asked Billy to share every detail. As they talked, Spots moved closer to where they were and watched the girl with interest. "He likes me," Emma exclaimed, beaming. From that day on, a special friendship formed between Billy and Emma. The girl always asked about Spots, and Billy loved telling stories about their time together on the Thompson farm. Dr. Sarah Bennett observed these interactions with scientific curiosity. Spots showed a unique sensitivity toward children, especially those who needed extra care. "It's like he remembers being nurtured himself," she remarked, very rare in wild felines. Spot's story began attracting media attention. Journalists visited the zoo to meet the Jaguar raised by a child, and the story spread throughout the region. At first, Billy was shy about the attention, but he soon realized it had a positive side. More people were learning about the importance of protecting jaguars in the wild. During one interview, he met Professor Michael Smith, a biologist from the local university, who studied wild feline behavior. "Your case with Spots is scientifically fascinating, Billy," the professor said. "Would you like to participate in a study on human-wild feline bonds?" The idea excited the boy. Taking part in scientific research about his experience with Spots would give even more meaning to their story. The study involved detailed interviews, observations of Billy and Spots, interactions and comparisons with similar cases worldwide. Professor Michael discovered their bond had unique characteristics, likely due to how young Spots was when found and the intensity of care he received. "You created an almost perfect care routine, even without technical knowledge," he explained. "The diet, the schedule, the way you interacted, it all contributed to the animal's healthy development." The study brought Billy recognition but also responsibility. He became a kind of conservation spokesperson, giving talks at local schools. "Jaguars aren't pets," he said in his presentations. "What happened with me and Spots was special, but also very dangerous. Wild animals belong in the wild." Billy's talks became popular with children. He told the whole story, including the difficult and dangerous moments, always emphasizing that raising a jaguar was something no one should ever attempt. 1 year after being transferred to the zoo, Spots became one of the main attractions there. His enclosure was always surrounded by curious visitors, eager to see the farmer boy's jaguar. The educational program involving Spots was a success. Children left the zoo with a much better understanding of the importance of preserving wild felines. Billy Thompson, now 11 years old, had grown more confident and responsible. His experience with Spots had deeply marked him, but in a positive way. "Grandpa, do you think I did the right thing saving Spots that day?" he asked during a visit to the zoo. "You followed your heart, boy, and in the end, everything worked out for everyone." Ernest was proud of his grandson. Seeing how Billy had matured and found purpose through the experience was rewarding. During one of the visits, Dr. Sarah Bennett shared unexpected news. "Billy, we'd like to propose something special. How would you feel about being Spot's official sponsor?" The zoo's sponsorship program allows special people to maintain official bonds with specific animals, contributing to their care and participating in educational activities. What does that mean? Billy asked. It means you'd be officially recognized as a special person in Spot's life. You could visit him whenever you want, take part in his presentations, and help share his story with other visitors. The proposal thrilled Billy. Becoming Spot's official sponsor would give permanence to their bond. The sponsorship ceremony was a special event. Several important people attended, including the zoo director, media representatives, and other children involved in educational programs. Billy Thompson, do you accept becoming Spot's official sponsor, committing to his well-being and helping educate others about wild feline conservation? Dr. Sarah asked solemnly. I do, Billy replied, his voice thick with emotion. Spots, as if understanding the moment's significance, stayed close to the enclosure bars throughout the ceremony, watching everything with his attentive golden eyes. After the ceremony, Billy received an official plaque identifying him as Spot's sponsor, along with a special pass granting him free access to the zoo. Now you two are officially a special family, Dr. Sarah said. In the following months, Billy's visits became more frequent. He went to the zoo at least once a week, always participating in educational activities. Emma, the girl in a wheelchair he'd met months earlier, became a close friend. She had also sponsored another zoo animal and often joined the activities. Billy, do you think Spots remembers the farm? Emma asked during one of their conversations. I'm sure he does. He always acts different when he sees me, like he remembers good things. The two children developed a friendship based on their love for animals and became inseparable during zoo activities. Professor Michael Smith continued monitoring Spot's development for his study. The Jaguar had become one of the most sociable felines he'd ever observed in captivity. Spots defies several theories about Jaguar behavior, the professor remarked. He retains wild instincts but also displays unique social abilities. The professor's study began attracting international attention. Researchers from other countries took interest in Spot's case and requested visits to the zoo. Dr. Mai Chen, a Japanese animal behavior specialist, came to the US specifically to meet Spots and Billy. This bond is extraordinary, she said after observing their interactions. Extremely rare in the world's scientific literature, the visit from the Japanese researcher brought even more recognition to the story of Billy Thompson and Spots. The case began being cited at international conservation conferences. Billy felt honored, but sometimes the attention became overwhelming. It was a lot for an 11-year-old boy to process. Grandpa, sometimes I wish it could just be me and Spots like before, he confessed to Ernest. But now you two are helping so many people understand wild animals, son. That's very important. Ernest was right. Their story had become a powerful tool for environmental education. During a special visit at the end of the year, Dr. Sarah Bennett had a surprise prepared. Billy, how would you like to spend an entire day with Spots? We'll arrange a special experience for you both. The special experience involved a whole morning where Billy could stay near Spots' enclosure, observing his natural behaviors and participating in his enrichment activities. Look how strong he's gotten, Billy remarked, watching Spots climb a tall tree with impressive agility. The feline had grown into a magnificent young adult jaguar, nearly 2 years old. His muscles were well-defined, and his movements carried the natural grace of big cats. During the special day, Billy helped the keepers prepare enrichment activities for Spots. They hid pieces of meat in different spots around the enclosure to stimulate the animal's hunting instincts. He still remembers how I liked to play. I'm with him, Billy said, noticing how Spots reacted differently when he was nearby. The feline showed more energy and curiosity in the activities when Billy participated, as if the boy's presence made him more excited. At the end of the day, during their goodbye, something unexpected happened. Spots approached the bars and did something he hadn't done in months. He rubbed his head against the bars right where Billy placed his hand. He still sees me as family, Billy whispered, moved. Dr. Sarah watched the scene with scientific interest, but also personal emotion. In 2 years of working with Spots, she had never seen the animal show so much affection. "You two really do have a special connection," she said. That night, Billy slept in the zoo's guest house, a special courtesy Dr. Sarah had arranged. It was the first time he had spent the night so close to Spots since they had been separated. In the early hours, he woke to the familiar sound of Spot's low growls. The feline was vocalizing, a behavior the keepers said was rare for him. "He knows you're here," one of the night guards said. Jaguars have very sharp hearing. The thought that Spots could sense his presence even at a distance left Billy deeply moved. Their connection truly went beyond physical barriers. The next morning, during breakfast at the zoo's cafe, Billy met Dr. Rachel Cooper, a new veterinarian, who had recently arrived to work with big cats. "I've heard so much about you and Spots," she said. "I'm looking forward to getting to know you both better." Dr. Rachel had an interesting proposal. She was developing an animal-assisted therapy program that could include Spots. Animals like Spots, with a history of positive human bonds, can help children with emotional struggles, she explained. The idea that Spots could help other children intrigued Billy. How would it work? Controlled sessions where children with emotional difficulties or trauma could observe and indirectly interact with Spots. The presence of large, calm animals has proven therapeutic effects. The program was still in the planning stages, but Dr. Rachel Cooper wanted to include Billy Thompson as a co-therapist, sharing his story with the participating children. "Your experience could be very valuable for other kids who've been through tough situations," she said. Billy liked the idea, but wanted to talk to Ernest before making any decision. On the way back to the farm, grandfather and grandson discussed the new opportunities opening up. "Grandpa, do you think I should join this therapy program?" "If you feel comfortable, son. But remember, you're still a child too. You can't take on too much responsibility." Ernest was right. Billy sometimes forgot he was only 11, given the maturity he'd developed through his experience with Spots. Back at the farm, life resumed its natural rhythm. Billy had fully returned to his normal activities, but now with an added purpose. That motivated him. Mrs. Miller always asked about Spots when she visited the farm. "Son, you have no idea how proud we all are of you," she'd say. "You turned a dangerous situation into something beautiful." The neighbors in the area had become passionate advocates for conservation after hearing Billy and Spots' story. Many had visited the zoo just to see the famous feline. Mr. Miller, Mrs. Miller's husband, often remarked, "If someone told me this story, I wouldn't believe it, but I saw it with my own eyes." The shift in the community's attitude toward wildlife was one of the most positive outcomes of the whole experience. 3 months later, Dr. Rachel Cooper called with news about the therapy program. "Billy, we got approval for the project. Would you like to join the first session as a trial?" The experimental session would involve a small group of children who'd been through traumatic situations. The goal was to observe how they'd react to Spot's presence and Billy's stories. "What kind of kids will be there?" Billy asked. "Children who've lost parents, faced abandonment, some with childhood depression. Cases similar to what you went through when you first came to the farm." The similarity to his own experience made Billy agree to participate. Maybe he could help other kids overcome their struggles. The first session was scheduled for Saturday morning. Billy arrived at the zoo nervous but determined to do his best. The group consisted of 5 children between 7 and 12, all accompanied by psychologists and social workers. "Kids, this is Billy Thompson, the boy who took care of Spots when he was a cub," Dr. Rachel Cooper introduced. The children looked at Billy with curiosity mixed with shyness. He recognized in their eyes the same feelings he'd carried when he first arrived at his grandfather's farm. "Hi, everyone. Do you want to meet my friend Spots?" Billy asked, trying to sound natural. The children's reactions were gradual. First, they showed interest in the story, then grew fascinated seeing Spots up close. Olivia, an 8-year-old girl who'd lost her parents in an accident, was the first to ask questions. "Billy, were you sad when you had to say goodbye to Spots?" "I was really sad, Olivia. It was one of the hardest things I've been through." "But now you get to see each other again, right?" "Yes, and our friendship grew even stronger." The conversation flowed naturally. The kids related to Billy's feelings and gradually began sharing their own experiences. Spots seemed to sense the special energy of the moment. The feline moved, closer to where they were and displayed calm, observant behavior. "He's beautiful," said Ethan, a 9-year-old boy who'd been abandoned by his parents. "Looks like he's listening to us." "Spots had always been a good listener," Billy Thompson replied. "When I was sad, I'd talk to him and I'd always feel better." Dr. Rachel Cooper watched the interactions with satisfaction. The experiment was working even better than she'd hoped. By the end of the session, the children were visibly more cheerful and open. Several asked when they could come back. "Would you like to participate in more sessions like this, Doctor?" Rachel asked. They all said yes, and some even asked if they could bring drawings to show Spots next time. "Of course you can," Billy said. "Spots will love seeing your drawings." The first session was considered a complete success. Dr. Rachel decided to formalize the program and proposed bi-weekly sessions. Billy committed to participating whenever possible, understanding he'd found an important way to use his experience to help others. In the following months, the therapy program expanded. More children were included, and the success of the sessions drew attention from other professionals in the field. Emma, the girl in a wheelchair who had become Billy's friend, began helping as a volunteer too, sharing her own story of overcoming challenges. "Billy, you've turned our lives into an amazing adventure," she said during one session. The children in the program developed special bonds with both Billy and Spots. The big cat became a kind of symbol of hope for them. Professor Michael Smith included the therapy program in his study, documenting the positive effects of the children's interactions with Spots. "The results are remarkable," he reported. "The children show significant improvements in self-esteem and social skills." The program's success reached other institutions. Children's hospitals and rehab centers began expressing interest in similar projects. Dr. Rachel received invitations to present the program at child psychology conferences, always bringing Billy as a co-presenter. "You've become an example to so many people, Billy," she told him before one of these presentations. Billy, now 12, had learned to handle the responsibility of being a role model, but he never forgot that it all started with a simple act of compassion for an injured animal. During a special visit on Spot's second birthday at the zoo, something touching happened. The big cat had learned to respond to some basic commands from the handlers, but when Billy tried using the same commands he'd used back at the farm, Spots reacted immediately. "He still remembers our signals," Billy exclaimed, moved. Spots responded to the specific calls Billy had used when he was a cub, showing an impressive emotional memory. Dr. Sarah recorded the moment on video, considering it scientifically relevant for studies on long-term memory in big cats. "This is more proof of the depth of your bond," she said. The video of their interaction went viral on the zoo's social media, spreading Billy and Spot's story even further. Messages poured in from people around the world, praising Billy for his dedication to animals and how he'd turned a difficult experience into something positive. One especially touching comment came from a Canadian mother. "My son went through a similar loss, and your story gave us hope. Thank you for sharing this journey." Billy was moved to realize his story was helping people in places he'd never even been. "Gramps, I never imagined saving a Jaguar cub would have such consequences," he told Ernest. "Sometimes small acts of kindness turn into big things, son." Ernest was proud not only of his grandson, but of how the entire experience had strengthened the family bonds between them. On the 3rd anniversary of Spots' arrival at the zoo, a special celebration was organized. All the children from the therapy program participated, along with local officials and media representatives. Billy Thompson, now 13, gave an emotional speech about the journey they had taken. "When I found Spots injured by that fence, I just wanted to help a wounded animal. I never imagined he would change my life and so many others." Spots, as if understanding the importance of the occasion, stayed near the celebration area the entire time, watching the festivities with interest. "Spots isn't just a special Jaguar," Billy continued. "He's a teacher who shows us about love, dedication, and how small actions can have big consequences." The speech moved everyone there. Many people cried, including Dr. Sarah Bennett and Professor Michael Smith. During the event, an important announcement was made. The therapy program with Spots would expand to other zoos across the country. Your experience has created a model that can help thousands of children, the zoo director declared. Billy felt honored but also aware of the responsibility it carried. In the following months, he took part in training sessions to teach other young therapists who would work with similar animals in different locations. Emma remained his partner in the activities, and together they developed specific techniques to help children with different types of trauma. "Billy, you taught me that having a disability doesn't stop me from helping others," Emma said during one of the training sessions. Their friendship had become another example of perseverance and camaraderie. Professor Michael Smith finalized his scientific study on Billy and Spot's case. The findings were published in an international journal on animal behavior. "You've made it into the world of scientific literature," he said, showing the publication to Billy. The article documented not just the bond between boy and Jaguar, but also the positive therapeutic effects that came from this unique experience. Universities in different countries began including the case in biology and psychology courses, using it as an example of positive interaction between humans and wild animals. Billy received invitations to visit some of these universities as a guest speaker, a rare honor for someone so young. "Grandpa, did you ever think that day at the fence would lead to all this?" he asked during one of these trips. "Never, son. But I always knew you had a special heart." Ernest accompanied his grandson on all the important trips, proud to see how the shy boy who had arrived at the farm had grown into a confident and inspiring young man. 4 years after finding Spots, Billy had become a national figure in conservation and animal-assisted therapy. Spots, now a magnificent adult jaguar, remained an ambassador for his species at the zoo, helping thousands of people understand the importance of protecting wild felines. The therapy program had expanded to 15 states, helping hundreds of children overcome trauma and build self-esteem. "How you've created something that will last forever," Dr. Rachel Cooper said during an awards ceremony. Billy, now 14, planned to study biology and veterinary medicine to keep working with wild animals. "I want to become someone who helps protect animals like Spots in the wild," he told a science magazine in an interview. Emma had also defined her future. She wanted to study psychology to keep helping children through animal therapy. "Billy Thompson showed me that we can turn our struggles into strength to help others," she said. During a special visit on Spots' 5th anniversary at the zoo, a magical moment happened. The big cat, now fully grown and majestic, did something he hadn't done in a long time. He rubbed his head against the bars as Billy approached and let out that soft purr the boy had known since their earliest days. "He still loves me," whispered Billy, tears in his eyes. "And he always will," said Dr. Sarah. "You two share a bond that goes beyond everything we know about wild animals." In that moment, Billy understood completely what had happened. Saving Spots that day by the fence hadn't just been an act of compassion for an injured animal. It had been the start of a journey that would change his life, the lives of hundreds of other children, and how people saw the relationship between humans and wildlife. Spots had grown strong and healthy, perfectly fulfilling his role as a conservation ambassador. Billy had become a confident and dedicated young man, finding purpose through caring for others. "Spots," Billy said, placing his hand on the bars, "you were the best friend I could have ever asked for. And look at all we've accomplished together." The big cat gazed at him with those golden eyes that had watched him grow from a frightened cub into a conservation ambassador, and Billy knew that despite all the changes, the love between them remained just as it was on that very first day. The story that began with a lonely boy finding an injured cub had turned into a legend of love, dedication, and perseverance, one that would inspire future generations to protect and respect wildlife. And in Spot's heart, the memories of that 9-year-old boy who saved him would live forever, just as Billy would forever carry the memories of the cub who changed his life for the better. Together they proved that true love knows no boundaries of species, and that small acts of kindness can create waves of change far beyond what we can imagine. The end. Now, tell us what you thought of this touching story and where you're watching from. Do you believe Billy made the right choices throughout this journey? Share your honest thoughts in the comments. We can't wait to read them. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like this video and, most importantly, subscribe. to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.